Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to another virtual press conference hosted by the Office of the Leader of the Opposition. I am Saddam Hussein, the Member of Parliament for Barataria San Juan, and with me this morning is the Member of Parliament for Chaguanas East, Ms. Vandana Mohit. This morning, we are here to bring you some updates in terms of the manner in which the government has been disposing of state assets in the form of social assistance to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And MP Mohit will start off the conference this morning outlining some of the issues that she has identified and would want to raise this morning with you regarding the manner in which this government has been governing this country.
Thank you very much, colleague MP Saddam Hussein. First of all, a very pleasant good morning to our viewers and members of the media. At this time, I would like to take the opportunity to express our sincere condolences as an opposition to those who have lost members of their families, to those who have lost friends to COVID-19 in our nation, to those who are still fighting at home or at medical facilities. We want to take this opportunity to wish you a speedy recovery. And at this time, I will go straight into business. Firstly, following yesterday's press conference by the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, we can say that this morning we are at a sad place in this nation. And I would like to take this opportunity to let the Prime Minister know and the PNM know that your obsession with the opposition leader will not save lives, it will not bring us more vaccines, it will not help the vulnerable who's being affected most at this time, it will not take us out of an SOE, and most importantly, it will not ease the burden that our healthcare workers are facing at this time. What you need is a proper plan, which we notice you do not have. And at this time, I would also like to state that whilst our population sat in front of their television, hoping for comments by the Honorable Prime Minister to aid in their welfare as a people, the Prime Minister chose to add another buff to the population. And we are saying here this morning that the Prime Minister needs to stop being a bully, and if he stops being a bully, people may actually heed his warnings. And we are also saying to the Prime Minister to keep your foul language for your farm. Keep your foul language for your farm. And with that being said, it brings me into the big question to Mr. Prime Minister: what are your government's priorities in a time when our nation's citizens need your support most? And yesterday the Prime Minister said that landlords need to show empathy. We are asking here this morning, Prime Minister, would you show empathy when you have bills to pay? And do you know that this lockdown crippled many persons who never recovered from the first lockdown? We are asking you, where's your empathy for the renting population in this country and large families? Because we can see you have none whatsoever. And this morning I want to deal with a few things, actually 4 points, and I'll go into my first point, which is the Ministry of Social Development launch of a radio program. And I want to refer to an article dated Sunday, May 3rd, 2021, where the Ministry of Social Development launched a program. It's Family Time Let's Talk. And this program is geared to support healthy families through preventative and restorative strategies. With that being said, we are in total agreement with the principle that families are experiencing trying times relative to, let's put it all together, unemployment, medical crisis, financial crisis. And we are aware that these things requires an intervention. And we can also concur that a radio program which can reach the homes of persons and at the same time not breach the COVID-19 protocols. But we are also bearing in mind as an opposition that this program launched by the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services was launched on 2 stations, that being 98.1 FM and I-95.5 FM. In a time where families are requiring direct support, this program was launched. And we are asking the question, what was the criteria used in the selection of these 2 radio stations, which I just referred to? We are also asking the government, what was the demographics and listenership surveys used? In other words, some may agree, some may not, but we are also asking, does these stations have the widest listenership in the country? And most importantly, at this point in time, where families require a lot of help in direct support, what is the cost of this initiative to launch this radio program? And in addition to that, what evaluation will be used for the success of this program? Because we have to ask ourselves the question, what other initiatives would have been or may have been abandoned for this initiative? Meaning, what was given up to fund this particular program? Is it additional funding given, or was it that social sector's programs were reduced to facilitate this initiative? And apart from that, what is the cost-benefit analysis of this program versus, as I referred to earlier, direct support, meaning food grants, support grants for families at this point in time? So really and truly, persons are flooding social services offices over the last year for assistance. And you are saying to us to provide, to help with healthy families and through prevention and restorative strategies. We can talk on a radio station whilst many families out there are hungry. So we really need some answers as per this radio program versus direct support initiatives at this point in time. And the reason why I'm relating to this particular program is these are serious questions in which we are asking because we have real family issues out here. I'm not sure if the population has seen where we have a 35.8% in child abuse. And in 2021 January as well, we have a 300% increase in domestic violence, and these are all in relation to families. So we are also asking the question, if it is the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services will be working with the Office of the Prime Minister in this particular initiative, and if this will help decrease these percentages in which we are seeing, which would have increased quite a lot. Because of the fact that we also, we have been recognizing these increases, and you have launched a program to help with the family. But where is the minister in the office of the Prime Minister, Minister Ayana Webster Roy? In the midst of these major increases, could we be informed of what rollouts and innovations were even expressed by this minister during this time? We will do, we will launch, and that's all we are hearing. What is this minister doing with these particular statistics and increases which are available to her? And we also have to ask, because we really don't know, is she proving to be an embarrassment to the office of the Prime Minister? Because you are seeing the Social Development Ministry launching this program with no link to the office of the Prime Minister, and we have these major increases. Which brings me into my next point of the issuance of food cards. As I mentioned before, direct support, the issuance of food cards during the lockdown. A few days ago, via the Ministry of Finance website, the population at large was advised that food cards have been made available to the MP's offices. Now, as of this morning, as an MP myself, my colleague, and other members of the opposition, we are totally unaware of the quantum of food cards available to us. Totally unaware of the quantum of food cards available to us. There has absolutely been no communication, and this has placed, we have received no notification, and this has placed opposition MPs, we speak for ourselves right now, this has placed us in an invidious position wherein constituents are approaching us, people are pleading to us for food support, for food cards. Yes, we are getting the food baskets, but people are pleading to us for food cards, which are simply not available at this time. So we are asking, can the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Social Development indicate when and the quantum of food cards which will be advanced to MPs? In addition to that, we would also like to know if each constituency will be receiving a standard amount and who else will be receiving food cards following a few days ago, which occurred with the food baskets. Because thousands of families, many families are still awaiting assistance from the Ministry of Social Development and the Ministry of Finance following the first lockdown. Which now brings me into the salary relief grant. The salary relief grant system, if I am to go back a little from the opposition by a question filed on 17 September 2020, and further asked, it was question number 50, the Minister of Finance would have been asked, and I read, could the Minister state the total number of salary relief grants issued from March 31st, 2020 to September 25th, 2020, disaggregated by constituency? The Minister's response on November 9, 2020 was, and I read, the government COVID-19 relief program is entirely unpolitical, and salary relief grants were provided to all those who qualified for this assistance regardless of where they live. A supplemental question was asked, which reads, at any point in time would this system be refined to facilitate constituencies so that we can get totals by constituencies? And any representative would like to know about their constituencies and the assistance being received. The Minister's response at that time, and I read, not at this point in time. As I indicated, all persons who applied, who qualified, will be paid regardless of where they live. That's in 2020. Now in 2021, a few days ago, May 21st, and I'm sure a lot of you heard this, the Minister of Finance stated, we have a very sophisticated web portal that can tell you whether the person is on a mobile device, a cell phone, desktop, computer, tablet, etc. So we are asking this morning, with all the sophistication that the Minister spoke of in the system, how can this not generate information on the geographical spread of these grants? How can it not provide and generate that information? We therefore find this quite alarming, and we have to ask the question, what exactly is being hidden by the Minister of Finance in the distribution of what he claims should total 93,000 salary relief grants? Those are the figures he's giving to the population. And I move on to say that in recent times, within the last 2 weeks, the Minister of Finance stated that 7,000 persons, they are now in the process of doing the debit cards because of account numbers and This salary relief grant was supposed to be as a matter of urgency to assist families who were in need at that point in time since the first lockdown. 1 year later, when a second lockdown was announced, you are now seeking to give these people, these 7,000 people, their salary relief grants. So have you asked yourselves in the PNM or in the government what exactly these people have been facing? And it gets better, you know. Trinidad and Tobago, it gets better. I now move to my fourth point. Because you are hearing about all the relief grants, the support grants, the food basket, all of these different things. Well, this morning we are here seeking clarification from NAMDEVCO, and I'm sure you have been following my colleague MP Saddam Hussein. Arising out of the food basket fiasco in recent days, where it was exactly determined that persons other than MPs were in possession of food baskets and they were distributing food baskets, we are asking this morning, are there any other mechanisms being undertaken by NAMDEVCO as it relates to assisting persons in the communities? For example, and I'll break it down, is NAMDEVCO distributing checks? And can the board of NAMDEVCO state for us what these checks are for? Because it has been brought to my attention that checks from NAMDEVCO are being distributed in Chaguanas. And I received some documents in my mailbox last night. And before I proceed to show you, I am asking, is the Minister of Agriculture aware of the operations of NAMDEVCO, which is under his purview, as it relates to the issuance of checks? Because I have in my possession 2 checks, 1, 2, issued by NAMDEVCO. And we are asking because we were never aware as an opposition about checks, if so, being distributed by NAMDEVCO. What is in the public domain? What is in the public domain is the food support, the food basket, which in other words is the market bag, the income support, the salary relief grant. Those are what are in the public domain. But let us please note that the opposition, we have no issue with persons receiving assistance, you know. We have no issue with persons being able to find, food and any form of assistance within the household at this point in time. What we require is transparency and accountability. What we require is equity. And we are aware of food baskets as MPs, but we are not aware of checks. And when I showed you these checks earlier, the reason why it's a bit fishy, it's because $244, and then you have one for $923.90. And these checks were being issued as recent as the 21st of May, which is just 2 to 3 days ago, right? So we have to ask the question. And the reason we are asking this is we need to know, is this another option for persons to obtain food? If it is, let us know. Let the public know. It is important that families know at this time where they can receive assistance, because the pressure, the sufferation, it's real out here. And I will also tell you that we have received information that food supply facilities are being flooded with these checks, sir. So we really need to get some form of clarification from NAMDEVCO as to whether checks are being issued to persons as a form of a relief and assistance. So with that being said, I would now hand over to my colleague at this point so he can bring you some more information within our press conference.
Thank you very much, MP Mohit, for those startling facts that have been revealed regarding NAMDEVCO. And many of you all who would have listened to what the opposition was saying over the past few days, you would have understood that we raised several issues regarding the manner in which this government was distributing state resources to persons. And in one of those instances, we raised the issues regarding the hampers that were being distributed by NAMDEVCO. Through our advocacy, we were able to now ask and force NAMDEVCO to now increase the allocation for MPs from 400 to 600 hampers. But suffice it to say, that is not all. What remains outstanding is the issue of transparency. Because when we raised this issue on the press conference on last Thursday, we referenced several letters that were being sent between NAMDEVCO and other individuals within the local government framework, namely the Mayor of Chaguanas, where NAMDEVCO categorically stated that those hampers were only to be given to all 41 members of parliament only. And then subsequently we found out that NAMDEVCO was in fact distributing hampers to non-governmental organizations, NGOs, in particular one that was headed by a former PNM candidate who was defeated in the 2020 general election in the Couva North constituency. So that issue regarding the transparency and the distribution of those hampers still remain outstanding. And we hope that we get some answers regarding to how this really took place. How those NGOs who received these green hampers knew to apply? Who informed them of applying? What was the criteria being used for it to be determined how many hampers they would be given by NAMDEVCO? So there are several questions that still remain unanswered regarding these matters relating to NAMDEVCO. And now latest that MP Mohit just raised regarding checks being distributed or issued by NAMDEVCO to persons, and as of recent as the 21st of May 2021. So those are the issues that we wish to raise in the public domain so that persons can really understand what is taking place with the taxpayers' dollars of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, yesterday, there was a press conference hosted by the Office of the Prime Minister, and Minister Diyal Singh, in the press conference during his presentation, would have raised the fact that by August this year, Trinidad and Tobago will vaccinate at least 10% of its population, roughly 134,000 persons. Now, if this is the benchmark in which this government is using regarding the vaccination rate, it is totally unacceptable. We have seen all over the world that countries were able to reopen their economies based on the fact that they have vaccinated a large percentage of their population. Therefore, the spread of the virus and the transmission of the virus will be low, and in some cases nil, especially for those persons who have been fully vaccinated. In Trinidad and Tobago, we just fully vaccinated at least 2,000 persons, and persons who received the first doses around 60,000 persons. Now, based on the number of vaccines that we have received, there are around 233,000 vaccines that Trinidad and Tobago would have received, which means that we can only vaccinate about 116,500 persons. I now ask Minister Diyal Singh where he's going to get the additional vaccines in order to reach his 10% target by August, or is this another piece of misinformation that he's throwing out to the public? And in any event, that number is totally unacceptable. When we look at our Caribbean neighbors, in terms of the vaccination rate per 100, you have Barbados, they are at 44%, you have Guyana at 20%, you have Grenada at 17%. And Trinidad and Tobago, we are under 10% right now. We can't fully open our economy with 10% of the population vaccinated. By the time we are ready to reopen the economy with this low vaccination rate, there will be nothing to reopen. And what was very embarrassing is that the government is boasting that they were getting vaccines from the people and the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, I'm very grateful for the vaccines from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But that country is facing one of the largest disasters in their history. A volcano has erupted in their country, covering their entire country with dust. And they have to now donate vaccines to us. Can you imagine the position that Trinidad and Tobago is if we are receiving vaccines from St. Vincent and the Grenadines? And that is where this government has placed Trinidad and Tobago, because they have collapsed totally in terms of the vaccination program, in terms of the acquisition of the vaccines and the distribution of those vaccines. So what will happen is that once the economy will not be open, it means that the revenue of the country will be decreased. Therefore, the government will have to increase its already high borrowing and also continue to raid the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, because it seems as though this pandemic is a license for them to raid that particular fund. And Minister Imbert would have indicated in his press conference on Friday that the fund is in a better place than it was in 2015 when they got into government. Well, I just want to place some facts onto the record. Minister Imbert and this PNM government did not put a red cent into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund since 2015. Not a red cent did they put into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund for 6 years. Instead, they have taken $14 billion from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund in this period. If we go back in history, it was the Kamla Persad-Bissessar government between the period of 2010 to 2015 who grew the fund by over 50% and deposited over $1 billion in the fund. She have increased the net asset value of that fund from 3.6 billion to 5.6 billion US dollars. So because of the large investments that the Kamla Persad-Bissessar government would have put into the HSF, it would mean that there would be higher interest rates in the fund. Therefore, that is what Minister Imbert and his PNM government is using to raid and take from the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And all of that goes back to the visionary leadership of the opposition leader, because she knew that we had to save for rainy days. The opposition leader had vision, and in this time of a pandemic, of this crisis of epic proportion, we need visionary leadership. She had a vision for laptops. Today we have virtual learning, something that the PNM government shut down. She had vision to build hospitals and build schools. Today, the entire parallel healthcare system is dependent on what Kamla Persad-Bissessar would have implemented in that period of 2010 to 2015 with the construction of the Couva Children's Hospital, the starting of the construction of the Arima Hospital, the Point Fortin Hospital, and also the additional block of the San Fernando Teaching Hospital, which are now being used as a parallel healthcare system in order for the treatment of COVID-19 patients. And this all goes back to visionary leadership. That is what it goes back to. It was Kamla Persad-Bissessar's policy of the government for the Nurses Academy to be built. So therefore you would have been training medical professionals to deal with this pandemic, because we understand that the nurses are out there every day giving human service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, especially those COVID-19 patients. Had the PNM government continued the policy of the Kamla Persad-Bissessar government, there would have been 6 years of continuous rollouts of nurses in Trinidad and Tobago. The vaccination sites that they are using to vaccinate the population was also what was constructed by the last People's Partnership government, which is, for example, one of the centers being the Tacarigua Tennis Center, which is now renamed as the Racket Center. So today, these are the projects the policies that have carried over for that last 5 years that is now that now Trinidad and Tobago is on somewhat a stronger path because of the projects and the policies of Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Straying from the HSF, Minister Imbert continuously dipped into the HSF. He interfered in the HSF so much that it took the fund over 6 years, according to MP Tanku, for it to be recovered to where it was from 2015 to now, where he can report the fund is in 2021. And every single year, Minister Imbert would come to the Parliament and report a budget deficit after taking billions of dollars from the HSF. Now, what I want to inform the population of is how they would have spent monies from the HSF. So, outside of funding that the government would have received from external sources, and I have a Guardian article dated the 4th of April 2021, which is an article written by the Media Institute of the Caribbean, where they indicated that the government would have received over $500 million US from external sources in COVID-19 based economic relief. So the government would have received this via donations and via loans. So they received monies from the United States of America, from the CAF Development Bank, from the Pan-American Health Organization, from the Inter-American Development Bank, from the IDB CARFA, from the World Bank, from the Caribbean Development Bank, and also from domestic borrowings also. So the government received, that is over, that is 500, that is about 3.5 billion in 1 year. Received $3.5 billion from external sources for COVID-19 relief. Yet they raided $6.3 billion from the HSF in 3 months. Now, in my possession, I have the reports of the HSF. And these reports are authentic documents that were laid in the Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago by the Ministry of Finance. So the 3 reports were withdrawals made on the 15th of May 2020, on the 23rd of June 2020, and on the 25th of August 2020. So I'll deal with the first withdrawal. And the first withdrawal was in the sum of $2.8 billion being taken on the 15th of May 2020. Now, just a history of this is that the government would have amended the Heritage and Stabilization Fund Act because this fund is governed by laws, by a particular piece of legislation called the Heritage and Stabilization Fund Act, Chapter 7009. And in this, the government is allowed to take or withdraw $1.5 billion during any financial year, and in this case, for any dangerous infectious disease declared under the Public Health Ordinance. So the government has the legal authority to take money from the HSF that they amended based on a situation like what is happening right now. So one would imagine that if you amended the law to ensure that you treat with financing expenses and COVID-19 relief, you would have taken money from the HSF and spent it on COVID-related expenses, such as PPE, relief that Vandana talked about in terms of social assistance, in terms of medical facilities, in terms of sanitizing, in terms of disposal of waste, in terms of public education. So you would have thought that the government would have taken money out of the HSF in order to use it for COVID-19 relief. Well, this is what the government used the money from the HSF on. So the $2.8 billion that was withdrawn from the 15th of May 2020 was taken to pay contractors from the Ministry of Works and Transport, the Housing Development Company, and the UDCOT. And those sums, monies total to 1.8 billion TT dollars. So, Ministry of Works and Transport got 477 million TT dollars, HEC got 687.2 million TT dollars, and the UDCOT got 680.1 million TT dollars, which sums up to $1.8 billion. But they took $2.8 billion. So the Minister of Finance is yet to explain where the $1 billion gone from the first withdrawal of the HSF for COVID-19 relief. So you would see that not a cent was spent on PPE, not a cent on vaccines, not a cent on medical equipment, not a cent on doctors, nurses, frontline workers, but it went to contractors. Next withdrawal, 23rd of June 2020. The government took $1.4 billion from the HSF, again under the guise that this is for COVID-19 relief. When you look at the report, these are the reports I have in my possession. When you look at the report, it said that the sum that was taken from the HSF on the 23rd of June, $860 million was allocated to ministries and departments to cover outstanding bills for goods and services such as rent, security, janitorial, utility, construction, and other contracted services owed, not related to COVID. These are old bills, as well as projected expenses going forward. In addition, the sum of 500 million TT dollars was allocated to NIDCO, HDC, NIPDEC, UDICOT to clear outstanding bills owed to contractors and suppliers. Not a cent was spent on COVID-19 relief. So this was taken when? On the 23rd of June. And a few days later, the 3rd of July 2020, the Prime Minister announced general elections 2020. So one can put one and one together and understand why they were withdrawing monies from the HSF on the eve of a general election to pay contractors and not use it for COVID-19 relief. This money should have been spent on vaccines. This money should have been spent on doctors. This money should have been spent on making the healthcare system better. This money should have been spent to buy and procure ventilators, oxygen, equipment, not to pay contractors at this critical time of a pandemic. Then the last payment came out, the last withdrawal was the 25th of August 2020 in the sum of $2.1 billion. And this one was frightening because this is what it says. It says that the government would have withdrew this money, and I'm going to quote directly from the report. It says that in addition, the government faced a severe cash constraint which put it at a major risk, and as a result, there was an urgent need for a cash injection to the consolidated fund to avert the potential for reputational risk arising from non-payment on account of insufficient funds. That simply means is that there was no money in the government's current account at that time in August last year. So the government had to withdraw money from the HSF to put into the current account so that when persons go to cash government checks, the checks don't bounce. The check don't bounce because there's no money in the bank account. And that is the reputational damage that they're speaking of in this report. So I have copies of all three reports that were laid in the Parliament, all totaling to $6.3 billion under the guise of COVID-19, when in fact this $6.3 billion was taken to pay friends, families, and financiers. This money didn't go for COVID. This money went to the payment of contractors on the eve of a general election. That is where this money went. And today the government will come to give the population crumbs, give them and make one of the most, it's easier in this country to apply for a US visa than get the salary relief grant. That is the bureaucracy that this government has put the poor man under. That it is so difficult for them to access government services. The PNM government is always known for making it difficult to access government services. The poor man in this country to access government services. The man who really needs it, the vulnerable in our society, is unable to access the state resources because of the policies of this PNM government in making it very complex for them. Whereas they can just withdraw and take out money from the HSF and give to their friends, families, and financiers. And these are the issues that the population must be aware of. These are the issues that the population must be aware of. And then I heard Minister Imbert saying that, listen, if we have to borrow money to buy vaccines, they will borrow money. Minister Imbert, you have taken money from the HSF, which should have been used for buying vaccines, instead of borrowing money to buy vaccines. You have withdrawn money from the HSF to pay your friends, families, and financiers, and you are borrowing money to buy vaccines to save the lives of our citizens. That is shameless. They have, in the recent articles, we have seen that they have accessed a $1.4 billion loan from China to buy vaccines, when they could have used the money that they withdrew from the HSF to purchase vaccines. That money was never used for COVID-19. It was never used for COVID-19. And we will continue to expose the lies of this government. We'll continue to expose the untruths of this government and bring to the population the facts and the accurate information to reflect what is really happening with the affairs of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. So I thank you very much, and we now open the floor to members of the media who would wish to ask any questions that they may have based on the presentations. Good. Since there are no questions from the members of the media, we wish to thank everyone for joining us this morning. Continue to follow what we have been saying. Continue to follow the guidelines, the health protocols. We urge everyone to please keep safe, especially in these times. We have seen that the numbers are rising. So we encourage everyone to please keep safe. Tomorrow, we will be in Parliament, where we will be debating two motions, one being the motion relating to the declaration of the state of emergency, and second, the extension of the state of emergency for the period of 3 months. So we ask you to tune into the debate, and you will hear from the members of the opposition our views with regards to the SOE debates. So have a great day, stay safe, and take care everyone.